A woman was found shot inside a home late at night. She was only 33 years old. Her name was Diamond Rice. Police say the person who pulled the trigger was someone very close to her. What really happened inside that house? Was it an argument that turned deadly, or was it self-defense? Tonight, we look at the story of Diamond Rice, the life she lived, and the moments that led to the shooting. Before we begin, if stories the media ignore deserve justice, then subscribe to Unseen Crime Dossiers right now. Like this video so more people can see the truth, and comment below if you believe these voices deserve to be heard. Share this story, because awareness can change everything. Welcome to Unseen Crime Dossiers, where the stories the world tries to forget are finally uncovered. Stay with us, because every case you'll see is shocking, true, and you won't want to miss a single detail. Before the events that brought attention to her case, Diamond Rice was a 33-year-old woman who lived in the city of Cincinnati, located in the state of Ohio in the United States. People who knew her described a person who was working toward building a stable life through education and community work. Her daily routine often included school responsibilities, community programs, and time spent improving her career path. Like many adults trying to change their future, she focused on learning new skills and helping others. Her story shows how someone can move forward step by step, while trying to create opportunities not only for themselves, but also for young people in their community. During her younger years, Diamond experienced several challenges that shaped the direction of her life. At one point in her past, she became involved with youth advocate programs, an organization that supports young people who face legal or social difficulties. Programs like this aim to guide teenagers and young adults towards safer choices and more stable futures. Instead of seeing this experience as a setback, Diamond used it as a turning point. The support she received helped her understand how guidance and mentorship could influence a person's future. This exposure later inspired her to return to the same environment, but this time from a different role. After gaining stability in her life, Diamond began working with the same program that once assisted her. Through youth advocate programs, she helped mentor young individuals who were dealing with difficult situations. Her responsibilities included listening to their concerns, helping them stay connected to school, and encouraging them to avoid actions that could lead to legal trouble. The goal of the organization is to prevent young people from entering detention centers or other parts of the justice system. Diamond's work placed her in situations where she spoke with families, counselors, and community members. This involvement allowed her to become familiar with the everyday struggles that many young people face. At the same time, Diamond also focused on her education. She enrolled at Northern Kentucky University, where she studied social work. Social work is a field that focuses on helping individuals, families, and communities deal with challenges related to poverty, conflict, mental health, and access to resources. Students in this program learn about counseling, community programs, and systems designed to support vulnerable groups. By choosing this area of study, Diamond was preparing for a career that required patience, communication, and an understanding of complex social issues. Her time at the university involved attending classes, completing assignments, and working toward a degree that would allow her to continue helping others. Her decision to study social work was connected to her earlier life experiences. Many people who choose this field are motivated by personal events that show them the importance of support systems. Diamond's background gave her insight into how guidance can influence decisions and opportunities. Through her studies, she learned how social programs operate and how professionals assist people during difficult moments. Education also gave her access to instructors, classmates, and community networks that shared similar goals. These connections allowed her to expand her knowledge while preparing for a long-term career in community support and youth mentorship. Outside of her professional responsibilities and academic work, Diamond maintained relationships with people in her local community. Individuals who interacted with her often noted that she spent much of her time focused on projects related to helping young people move toward positive outcomes. Community programs like the ones she participated in often include mentoring sessions, structure activities, and educational guidance designed to keep teenagers engaged in productive environments. Through these activities, Diamond became someone familiar within the circles connected to youth development programs in the Cincinnati area. Her involvement created opportunities for her to interact with both young participants and other professionals who shared similar goals. By the time she reached her early 30s, Diamond Rice had developed a life that combined education, community involvement, and mentorship. Her work placed her in environments where she encouraged others to consider their decisions carefully and think about long-term goals. The path she followed illustrates how individuals sometimes return to organizations that once helped them, choosing to support others facing similar situations. Understanding this background provides context to who Diamond Rice was before the events that later brought national attention to her name. Her story begins with personal growth, community engagement, and a clear focus on helping young people build safer and more stable futures. At the time of the incident, Diamond Rice was living in Cincinnati, in the state of Ohio, where she shared a home with Jasmine Blake. The two women were known to be in a personal relationship and had been spending much of their time together at the residence on May Street in the Walnut Hills neighborhood. Like many couples, their daily life included shared responsibilities, conversations, and routines that developed as they spent time living under the same roof. People close to them were aware that they were partners, though not everyone knew the details of how their relationship functioned behind closed doors. Relationships often contain both calm and challenging moments, and the situation between Diamond and Jasmine was no different in that regard. Living together meant that both women shared the same space for daily activities. The home where they stayed became the center of their routines, including meals, conversations, and personal time after work or school responsibilities. Over time, small disagreements can sometimes appear when two people live closely with each other. These disagreements may involve daily habits, financial concerns, personal boundaries, or communication differences. While such conflict are common in many relationships, they can sometimes grow into more serious arguments if they are not resolved early. For Diamond and Jasmine, investigators later looked closely at the nature of their interactions to understand how their relationship operated during the time they lived together. People who later spoke about the pair described a relationship that had moments of tension, as well as normal day-to-day interactions. Some neighbors and acquaintances reported hearing arguments on different occasions, although disagreements alone do not always indicate serious problems. In many households, disagreements happen without leading to dangerous situations. However, when investigators reviewed the background of the case, they paid attention to any reports of previous conflicts between the two women. Detectives often examined past interactions in order to understand whether there were patterns that might explain how a situation escalated on the night of the incident. As part of the investigation, authorities focus on how the relationship developed over time. This includes examining communication between the individuals involved, the environment inside the home, and any previous reports related to disturbances or disputes. When two people share a residence, many parts of their lives become connected. Their schedules, financial responsibilities, and personal decisions may overlap in ways that create both cooperation and stress. In the case involving Diamond Rice and Jasmine Blake, investigators attempted to understand how their daily interactions might have influenced the events that later took place. Looking at a relationship from this perspective helps law enforcement determine whether the situation developed suddenly or if it followed a longer pattern. Another area investigators considered was how conflict were handled when disagreements occurred. Some people prefer to solve problems through discussion, while others may respond with frustration or distance. The way a couple communicates during stressful moments can affect whether a situation becomes calm again or grows more intense. Authorities sometimes examine phone messages, statements from friends, and witness reports to understand how two people interacted before a serious incident. In this case, investigators were interested in learning whether earlier arguments had taken place and how those disagreements ended. Understanding communication patterns can help provide context when reconstructing the events of a specific night. The relationship between Diamond Rice and Jasmine Blake eventually became a central focus of the investigation that followed the shooting. Because both women were inside the home when the incident occurred, detectives needed to study the nature of their connection carefully. A close relationship can sometimes provide important clues about motive, conflict, or self-defense claims. Law enforcement officers often analyze timelines, statements, and physical evidence to build a clearer picture of how two individuals interacted shortly before a critical event. In situations like this, understanding the dynamics between the people involved can help explain how an argument may have escalated into a life-threatening moment. By examining their living arrangements, communication history, and reports from people around them, investigators attempted to build a timeline that showed how the relationship progressed before the shooting occurred. The goal of this process is to determine whether the incident resulted from a sudden dispute or from tensions that developed over a longer period of time. Studying the relationship between Diamond Rice and Jasmine Blake became an important step in understanding the larger story behind the case. Through interviews, evidence collection, and analysis of daily interactions, authorities worked to establish what was happening inside the home before the events that later drew widespread attention. On a night in early February 2026, events inside a residence in the Walnut Hills area of Cincinnati, Ohio, became the focus of a police investigation. Inside that home were Diamond Rice, age 33, and her partner Jasmine Blake. The two women were inside the house during the late hours when a serious argument reportedly began. Investigators later stated that the disagreement developed inside the residence on May Street. Situations like this often unfold quickly, and according to early reports, the exchange between the two individuals continued to escalate. At some point during the confrontation, a firearm became involved. The exact sequence of events that led to the weapon being used became one of the central questions for detectives examining the case. As the argument intensified, neighbors in the surrounding area reported hearing a loud gunshot. Calls were made to emergency services shortly afterward. Law enforcement officers from the Cincinnati Police Department responded to the scene to determine what had happened inside the home. When officers arrived, they secured the area and entered the residence to assess the situation. Inside the property, they located Diamond Rice suffering from a gunshot wound. Emergency medical responders were also called to the location. Despite their efforts, Rice was later pronounced dead as a result of the injury. The discovery immediately shifted the situation from a disturbance call to a homicide investigation. Police began documenting the environment inside the house as soon as the scene was secured. Detectives collected evidence, examined the firearm believed to have been involved, and recorded the physical layout of the residence. Crime scene technicians typically photograph locations, gather physical materials, and note the position of objects to preserve an accurate record of the environment. This process helps investigators reconstruct the timeline of events. Officers also separated individuals present at the scene so they could gather statements about what occurred. Because only two people were known to be inside the residence at the time, the account provided by Jasmine Blake became an important element in the investigation. Authorities soon took Jasmine Blake into custody while they continued their inquiry. She was later formally charged with murder in connection with the shooting. According to information that later emerged through legal representatives, Blake's defense claimed the shooting occurred during an act of self-defense. That claim introduced an additional layer of complexity to the case. When investigators hear claims of self-defense, they must examine whether a person believed they were facing immediate harm and whether the use of force matched the circumstances. Detectives therefore began reviewing physical evidence, statements, and timelines to determine whether the claim could be supported or contradicted by available facts. During the early phase of the investigation, law enforcement officers attempted to piece together what occurred in the minutes leading up to the gunshot. Investigators often review several forms of evidence in situations like this. They may analyze phone activity, look at security cameras near the property, and speak with neighbors who might have heard or seen something. In addition, detectives sometimes examine past police reports or complaints connected to the address. These steps help build a clearer picture of the interactions between individuals before a serious incident takes place. Establishing an accurate timeline is essential because even small details can affect how a case is interpreted in court. Neighbors in the Walnut Hills neighborhood later described hearing emergency vehicles and seeing police activity around the house during the response. Crime scene tape was placed around the property as officers continued their examination. Investigators remained at the location for hours while documenting evidence and interviewing individuals who might have had information about the events that night. Situations involving shootings inside homes often require careful analysis because investigators must determine exactly where each person was located, what actions occurred immediately before the firearm was used, and whether there were any attempts to leave the scene or seek help afterward. The night of the shooting marked the beginning of a legal process that would continue long after the police response ended. After the arrest of Jasmine Blake, the case moved into the criminal justice system, where prosecutors and defense attorneys began preparing arguments based on the available evidence. Courts often take time to examine witness statements, forensic reports, and investigative findings before determining the outcome of a case. The events inside the May Street residence therefore became the central focus of an ongoing legal discussion about what happened during that late-night argument, and whether the shooting was intentional, accidental, or carried out in self-defense. After the shooting that resulted in the death of Diamond Rice, investigators in Cincinnati, Ohio, began a detailed examination of the events that occurred inside the residence on May Street. Detectives from the local police department first focused on securing the scene and documenting everything inside the home. Crime scene investigators photographed the rooms, collected physical evidence, and examined the firearm believed to have been used. The purpose of this process is to preserve details that might later help reconstruct the timeline of events. In cases involving a fatal shooting inside a private residence, investigators carefully note the position of objects, possible signs of struggle, and the distance between individuals involved. Each observation is recorded to create an official report that may later be presented during legal proceedings. As officers process a scene, they also began interviewing individuals who might have relevant information. Neighbors who heard the gunshot were asked to describe what they noticed before and after the sound. Detectives typically ask about the timing of noises, the presence of vehicles, and any unusual activity in the area. These interviews help investigators estimate when the incident occurred and whether anyone entered or left the property around that time. Statements from witnesses are compared with physical evidence to identify consistent details. This step allows authorities to confirm whether the information provided matches what investigators discovered inside the home. The investigation also included reviewing communication records and digital information connected to people involved. Detectives often analyze phone calls, text messages, and social media interactions when trying to understand events leading up to a serious incident. These records can sometimes reveal whether arguments occurred earlier in the day or whether either individual attempted to contact someone shortly before the shooting. Establishing a timeline is an essential part of the process because it shows how the situation developed before law enforcement arrived. By examining communication activity, investigators attempt to determine whether the confrontation began suddenly or if tension had been building earlier. During the early stage of the case, police arrested Jasmine Blake, who had been inside the residence at the time of the shooting. She was later charged with murder in connection with the death of Diamond Rice. After the arrest, the case was transferred into the criminal justice system, where prosecutors reviewed the available evidence to decide how to proceed. Prosecutors represent the state and are responsible for presenting the case in court. Their role includes examining investigative reports, witness statements, and forensic findings to determine whether the evidence supports the charges filed by law enforcement. Attorneys representing Jasmine Blake introduced a different explanation for the incident. According to statements made by the defense, the shooting occurred during an act of self-defense. Claims of self-defense require legal examination because the court must determine whether the person using force believed they were facing immediate harm. In many jurisdictions, the law allows individuals to protect themselves if they reasonably believe their safety is in danger. However, investigators and legal teams must analyze the evidence carefully to determine whether that claim is supported by facts such as physical evidence, witness accounts, and the sequence of events inside the home. As the legal process continued, the case moved through several steps that are common in criminal proceedings. A court appearance typically follows an arrest, during which the accused person is formally informed of the charges. After this stage, lawyers on both sides begin preparing their arguments. Prosecutors gather evidence intended to prove the charges, while defense attorneys review the same materials to challenge or explain them differently. This preparation often includes requesting forensic analysis, examining police reports, and interviewing witnesses again. Both sides may also request additional information through legal procedures that allow attorneys to study evidence collected by investigators. The outcome of a case like this is determined through the judicial process, where judges and sometimes juries review the evidence presented by both sides. The legal system aims to determine whether the facts support the original charges, or whether another explanation better fits the evidence. In the case connected to the death of Diamond Rice, the investigation and court proceedings focus on understanding exactly what occurred during the confrontation that night. By examining physical evidence, witness statements, communication records, and legal arguments, the court attempts to establish a clear account of the events that led to the fatal shooting. News about the death of Diamond Rice spread quickly through the community in Cincinnati, Ohio, after police confirmed a shooting on May Street in the Walnut Hills neighborhood. Residents in the surrounding area became aware of the situation as law enforcement vehicles and investigators remained at the location for several hours. When incidents like this occur inside residential communities, information often begins circulating through local news outlets, neighborhood discussions, and social media posts. In this case, many people in the area learned about the event shortly after the police response, and conversations began about the circumstances surrounding the shooting and the individuals involved. People who had interacted with Diamond Rice through work, education, or community programs began sharing information about her background. Some individuals were familiar with her involvement in youth mentorship programs connected to youth advocate programs, where she had spent time helping young people navigate challenges in their lives. Others knew her through her academic work while studying social work at Northern Kentucky University. Community members who had worked with her explained that her activities often involved supporting teenagers who were trying to avoid legal trouble or improve their future opportunities. As these details became public, discussions about her work and her past involvement with youth development programs became part of the broader conversation about her life. Local organizations that focus on community support and youth outreach also took notice of the incident. Programs that work with teenagers and young adults sometimes respond publicly when individuals connected to their initiatives become part of a major news story. In this situation, people within those networks discuss the importance of mentorship programs and the role they play in helping young individuals stay connected to education and positive influences. Community discussions sometimes shift toward examining the challenges that participants face and how support systems can help guide people through difficult periods in their lives. As a result, conversations about the shooting also included broader topics about mentorship, guidance, and the role of community programs in shaping opportunities. Residents of the Walnut Hills neighborhood observed the increased attention on their area as reporters and investigators gathered information about the case. When a serious crime occurs within a neighborhood, local residents often begin asking questions about safety, conflict resolution, and the events that led to the incident. Neighbors sometimes share what they observed before or after the police response, though many details are confirmed only through official investigations. These discussions can continue for weeks as new information becomes available through law enforcement statements and court proceedings. The presence of investigators and media coverage often brings a temporary period of heightened attention to the area where the event occurred. Online platforms also played a role in spreading awareness about the case. News articles, community pages, and discussion forums allowed people from outside Cincinnati to learn about the situation. Social media users often share links to news reports, discuss possible explanations, and ask questions about the legal process that follows incidents like this. In many cases, online discussions include both confirmed information and speculation, which is why official statements from investigators and court records remain important sources of verified details. As the case involving Diamond Rice continued moving through the legal system, people following the story look for updates from police announcements and court appearances. Community reaction to incidents like this often includes reflection about the larger issues that can lead to conflict within personal relationships. Local discussions sometimes turn toward topics such as communication, dispute resolution, and access to support resources for individuals experiencing tension in their personal lives. Organizations that work with families and couples often emphasize the importance of addressing conflicts before they escalate into dangerous situations. While every case is different, community members frequently use these moments to consider what steps might prevent similar incidents in the future. This type of reflection can involve conversations among residents, educators, counselors, and community leaders. As the legal process connected to the case continued, many people remain attentive to updates from investigators and the courts. Public interest in cases like this often continue for months while legal proceedings move forward. Community members, program participants, and individuals who had known Diamond Rice followed the developments to understand how the justice system would interpret the evidence collected by investigators. The discussions surrounding the case show how a single event can affect not only the individuals directly involved, but also the broader community connected to their work, education, and daily life. The case involving Diamond Rice continued to move through the legal system after the events that took place in Cincinnati, Ohio. Investigators had already gathered physical evidence, witness statements, and official reports connected to the shooting that occurred inside the residence on May Street. Once this initial stage of investigation was completed, the focus shifted toward the court process, where legal professionals would review the findings and determine how the case should proceed. In situations involving a fatal shooting, the legal system carefully examines each detail to understand what actions took place, what circumstances were present, and whether the available evidence supports the charges that have been filed. The legal process often involves several structured stages that allow both sides of the case to present information. Prosecutors representing the state analyze police reports, forensic evidence, and statements collected during the investigation. Their responsibility is to present a clear explanation of events based on materials gathered by law enforcement. At the same time, defense attorneys review the same evidence and prepare their own interpretation of what occurred. The defense team representing Jasmine Blake introduced the argument that the shooting took place during an act of self-defense. When such a claim is presented, courts must evaluate whether the circumstances described meet the legal standards required to justify the use of force. During court proceedings, evidence collected from the scene plays an important role in shaping the direction of the case. Forensic analysis can help determine details such as the position of individuals, the distance involved in the shooting, and the sequence in which events likely occurred. Investigators may also present information gathered from digital communications, interviews with witnesses, and observations recorded by officers who first responded to the scene. Each of these pieces contributes to a broader reconstruction of what happened inside the residence during the argument that led to the gunshot. By placing these elements together, the court attempts to form a clear timeline that can be examined by both the prosecution and the defense. Witness testimony may also become an important factor as the legal process continues. People who interacted with either individual before the incident or who heard activity around the time of the shooting may be asked to describe what they observed. Their statements can provide context about the environment inside the home or the events leading up to the confrontation. In many cases, attorneys on both sides question witnesses in order to clarify details and test the reliability of their accounts. The purpose of this questioning is to ensure that information presented in court is accurate and consistent with the physical evidence collected by investigators. While the court process moves forward, the case remains part of public discussion because it raises questions about personal conflict, self-defense claims, and the responsibilities of the legal system. When situations like this occur, many observers follow the updates released through official court records and news reports. These updates provide information about hearings, motions filed by attorneys, and decisions made by judges regarding how the case will proceed. Public interest in cases involving serious charges often remains steady while the judicial system reviews evidence and legal arguments from both sides. The final outcome of a case such as this depends on how the court interprets the evidence presented during proceedings. Judges and sometimes juries are responsible for reviewing all available information before reaching a decision. Their role is to determine whether the prosecution has proven the charges beyond the required legal standard or whether the explanation presented by the defense provides a different understanding of the events. Because the case involves a claim of self-defense, the court must carefully consider whether the circumstances described meet the conditions defined under the law for using force to protect oneself. As the investigation and legal examination continue, the story of Diamond Rice remains connected to the broader process of determining what happened during the final moments inside that residence. The judicial system is designed to analyze evidence methodically and allow both sides the opportunity to present their arguments. Through this process, the court works toward establishing an official conclusion based on facts, testimony, and legal standards. The final judgment will ultimately determine how the events surrounding the shooting are interpreted within the framework of the law. Here at Unseen Crime Dossiers, we're driven by a mission to uncover hidden realities, honor forgotten voices, and keep their memories alive. If this story made you pause, reflect, or feel something, there's more coming that will challenge you even deeper. Make sure to hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a case. We're dropping new episodes regularly, and trust us, what's ahead is even more chilling. Before you go, We want to hear from you. What moment hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments. Your perspective matters, and your voice helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay alert, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth, because every life deserves to be heard. Thanks you all for watching.